You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a consecrated nation, a people set apart to sing the praises of God. You are a chosen race. Race has been a bit of an issue right throughout history. You go back to the time of Jesus and race was an issue for people. People were treated better because they were of one race compared to others. And even today, in parts of our world, and even within perhaps even some of our own community at times, there is this idea to preference a particular race, or even perhaps within our own area to preference people from the Shire over anybody else. But through baptism, we all become part of one family. We become part of one race. We become the people of God. And we are united as one family right across the world. St. Peter, writing in our second reading, says that you are a chosen race. And this had quite significant overtones at that time. The Jewish people saw themselves as God's chosen people, which meant they were chosen, but it also left a situation where others were excluded. Then you had the Roman Empire. Those were Roman citizens. They were considered, well, they were the most powerful people of the world at that time. And if you were a Roman citizen, you had rights, more so than you would if you were Jewish or anything else. By becoming Christians, we become part of this special family. We become part of God's family. And we are united wherever we are. One of the beautiful things I've seen over the last few weeks, I've been looking at some of the statistics and the analysis of where people are participating in our live streams. We do have, yes, a good bulk of our people who participate in our live stream are from our own area, which is a wonderful thing, from our own parish and from other parts of Sydney. But I've noticed that other than people who are watching within Australia, we've developed quite a significant audience of people who are watching in India, in Africa, in the Philippines and in Malaysia. If you're watching from there today, you're very welcome. You're part of our family as well, and it's great that you're here with us as part of our celebration today, that you're uniting in prayer with us, because we are all one race. We are the chosen race, the people of God. It's not that I'm an Australian that gets me to get up on a Sunday morning to come to Mass. It's that I'm a Christian, that I'm part of God's family. We are a royal priesthood. This also had great and significant overtones for the Jewish people. You had the tribe of kings, the tribe of David. You had the tribe of Levi, the priestly tribe. And there are other tribes as well. And people who were of the royal tribe had particular leadership qualities. And people treated them in a particular way. Those who were of the tribe of Levi were treated in a particular way as well. But Peter says that all of us are a royal priesthood. We're both royalty and we're priestly. And this is not just referring to people like myself. It refers to all of us. Through baptism, we become part of a royal family and part of a priestly people. All of us are princesses and princes. Little girls sometimes like to be reminded that they're princesses. But actually through baptism, we're all royalty. We might not live in fancy castles, we may not wear fancy crowns on our heads, but we're called to be leaders, the leaders of God in the world. We're called to live with dignity, like we're kings and queens. We're not meant to lord it over others, to cause war perhaps, as some kings or queens or leaders or dictators have done in the past. But we're called to be royal. We're called to be royalty. And we're called to live with that dignity. We're also called to be priestly. It's quite interesting. In the scriptures, in the New Testament, Peter and a few other places in Paul, they refer to the Christian people as priestly, as a priesthood. Today we often refer to people like myself as priest. But in the New Testament, they didn't refer to people like me as priest. They actually used another term. They used the word presbyter, or another translation of that might be as elder. They didn't use the word priest to designate someone like myself, who we sometimes refer to now as priest or maybe ministerial priest. The word priest had a specific meaning. And in a Jewish context, a priest was someone who worshipped God and someone who offered sacrifice. By becoming a Christian, all of us are priestly. We're called to worship and to lead people in worship. And we do that when we come to church, into a building. But we're called primarily to do that at home, to gather our families together in worship. I know growing up that family prayer was a big part of life in my family, as I hope it is and was for you as well. And my dad had a part to play in that, but my mum was, I think, the great leader of family prayer. She was being priestly. I'm not sure if she would talk about herself being a priest, but she was being priestly. She was leading worship. She passed on the faith through prayer and through action. And we need to do the same as well. All of us are called to do the same. Today is Mother's Day, and today I think especially of the role of mothers, not just in providing food and getting ourselves dressed and getting us off to school and becoming now the teacher at home with homeschooling happening and all of those things. But I think of mothers as the ones who lead prayer, who lead worship in the home. Such an important role. And that's part of what Christians do, is that we lead worship. We don't think, oh, well, we go over to the priest because he's the one who's going to worship God because I can't do it myself. As Christians, each of us are called to pray. Each of us are called to be saints. And we're called to be priestly. We are a royal priesthood. So by being a priest, we're called to worship. And then we're also called to offer sacrifice. Just before we have the Eucharistic prayer, the priest announces a little dialogue. I say, pray, my brothers and sisters, that my sacrifice and yours may be acceptable to God the Almighty Father. I make a sacrifice when I come to Mass, but you also make a sacrifice. You're sacrificing your time. But more than that, you sacrifice what's most important to you to offer that to God, to become one with God. And in doing that, you are being priestly. My friends, we are a chosen race, we are a royal priesthood, and we are a consecrated nation. A consecrated nation. That's a great little term to think about as well. During every Mass, the bread and wine are blessed. They are consecrated to become the body of Christ. We are consecrated as well through baptism, and every time we participate in Mass, we are consecrated to become the body of Christ as well. When we receive Jesus in Holy Communion, the priest or the minister holds up the host and says, the body of Christ. And then we receive that into us so we can be the body of Christ. We are called to be consecrated and to make our nation, our whole world, into God's kingdom. And we do that as a united race, a chosen race, as royalty, as priestly people, and as a nation set apart to sing the praises of God. In the first reading, in the Acts of the Apostles, the Christian community is just starting to emerge. The 12 are still in and around Jerusalem, and there's an argument that's going on within some of the Christian community. And that's where the first reading begins today. A number of disciples were increasing, and the Hellenists made a complaint against the Hebrews. What was happening is that the Hellenists, who were the Christians of a Greek background, sometimes the pagan background, and then the Hebrews, those who'd previously been Jewish, what was happening within the Christian community is that those who'd previously been Jewish were getting looked after better within the community than those of a Greek background. There was an inherent sort of racism happening within the Christian community. And the Hellenists come to the apostles and said, this is wrong. Our widows, those who most need help, they're being neglected while you're looking after the widows of all of the Hebrews. This is just wrong. So they got together, they talked about this, and they decided to coordinate a new ministry. Not an elder, not a bishop, and not a presbyter, but they designated a new person, what we refer to now as the deacon. We have one sitting just over there. Deacon Greg. Within the church, we hear this in the Acts of the Apostles today, the role of the deacon to coordinate the social mission, the outreach of the church. And that's a big part of what we do as the church. And hopefully our deacon here and deacons right throughout the world will remind us when we're preferencing one group and neglecting another, that they should be calling us to account to say, no, we're meant to be providing for everyone because we are a consecrated nation and a royal priesthood. That's part of what the deacon does. His deacon's job is not just to get up and read the gospel or to ask everyone to offer a sign of peace. The Acts of the Apostles tells us that they chose 7 to coordinate the social work of the church, to make sure nobody was left behind. And as Christians, we don't just think of our own little parish. We see ourselves as part of God's kingdom right across the world. And one of the beautiful things that I've taken delight in over the last few days is seeing the comments of people who are participating in our masses from other parts of the world. People in Malaysia, people in the Philippines, people in Africa, people in South America. If you're viewing this online today from one of those places, let us know where you're from. And if you've got concerns, if you've got prayers, if you have needs, let us know, because those needs are our needs as well. And they're especially the needs of our deacon, who's going to he does care for the social outreach of the church. My friends, we are a chosen race. We are a royal priesthood, and we are a consecrated nation, a people set apart to sing the praises of God.